CTTB Music Podcast.
It's the end of the year as we know it. It's the end of the year as we know it. Or not.
Or not. Yeah, it is.
I feel fine.
You feel fine. Hey!
Yeah. If you haven't already switched off, this is probably going to be quite short. It's our usual roundup of the year.
That was a jollier start than last year.
This is true. David Bowie died last year.
Yeah, didn't we read that?
Did we mention that?
Yeah, we did several times, and the 100 other people that had sadly departed.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Anyhow,
I'll go with your Rem edition anytime.
Yeah. Let's go
Let's move
for
on.
the awards. Where we talk about the awards.
So this is our end of year podcast.
Yeah. So we'll start off with the most surprising album award.
Yeah.
And I think we had two nominees in here for different reasons.
Very different nominees as well.
Yeah. So we have Harry Styles, ex One Direction person, possibly still One Direction person.
I don't know. Is he?
And also Susan Sund for Music for People in Trouble.
Oh.
The second of which I'm including in the list because it was a very, very different record to
Yes.
the previous one
Yes.
that we'd rated quite highly. However, that said, I think we decided overall that our winner would be Mr. Styles.
It is Harry Styles.
Yeah.
It's Harry Styles with Harry Styles.
Yeah.
Styling with Harry Styles.
Restyling.
I thought, because we'll get to the list later. I thought this was just worthy of a mention because, actually, if you'd said to me 12 months ago, right, Harry Styles of One Direction's bringing an album out, and
it won't suck,
and it's going to suck, and I'd have gone, of course it's going to suck, but actually, apart from the lead single, which did suck a little bit, the rest of the album, this is actually a really good pop album.
It was.
It was a really good.
Particularly if you like if your pop
yeah
touch points are the mid to late 70s rock of a certain
exactly. So actually, there was a lot on here to enjoy, and I remember at the time being not even a little bit surprised, actually quite surprised at how much I enjoyed this album. So a worthy winner.
Ditto, and just to me ahead, I think it was one that I just missed out on a mention in my top 20.
Wow, no, that's pretty good. So there you go.
Next up was our best shared musical activity outside of the podcast award, and as you've mentioned before, this can be literally quite anything, but in this year we've decided it's pretty much come down to a choice between the 5 gigs that we went to.
It has, to clarify, it has to be something that you and I do.
Yes, we both have to be there.
Excellent.
At the same time.
At the same
in
time.
the same place.
In the same place. Good. I mean, that's how I understand it.
Yeah, so we identified 5 gigs that we went to this year, which is Susan Sund for Ryan Adams, Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit, Always, and Angelina Presley.
We only managed 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had a couple at the start and then...
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Well, anyway.
And the winner is Pete? No, there isn't. The winner isn't Pete.
No, the winner is me. Excellent. I was there. This is a tricky one because there's a couple of worthy mentions on here. One of which I think is the winner. I particularly, actually no. Do you know what? I'm just going to pick one. I'm going to say Jason Isbell. Although Susan Sund probably gets. Can we do a joint winner?
Of course we can do a joint winner.
Okay.
It's our podcast.
The only reason why I'm not picking Ryan Adams is because as amazing as the Royal Albert Hall gig was, it was a very special gig, as every gig at the Royal Albert Hall is. And if you're ever fortunate enough to go to the Royal Albert Hall for a gig, you'll know it's a special experience. Actually, I'm going to change my mind again. With Susan Sund
I'm glad to let you decide this one, Pete.
With Susan Sund as opposed to Jason Isbell. But actually with all 3 artists I've just mentioned, with Susan Sund in particular, there was not only was the venue quite interesting, it was the Union Chapel in Islington, but actually her stage presence and her interaction with the crowd was quite unique to that venue, but also quite unique in terms of having had this, as you mentioned a moment ago, having had this very sort of sonic sounding album. It literally was just her and a piano and occasionally someone else with another keyboard.
Yes, in
And
fact,
it was
the bits which was
so-
the piano when we genuinely couldn't see it because she was.
Yeah, and for half the gig we couldn't see her because she was behind the piano. We were on the wrong side of the venue. But had we been on the other side of the venue,
We could have just looked at her back.
yeah. So I that would be my nomination
I think that's a word. I think she's a word.
because it was just so minimal and stripped down, but very.
It was very
cool.
minimal to that, which suited the tone of the record
Yes.
as well. I think.
Yes.
I will mention Ryan Adams for the one reason that, as you said, it was special because Ryan Adams played an encore,
Yeah. Yeah. He did the whole set and he did an encore.
and Ryan doesn't do encores.
No.
He's definitely one of those artists that thinks basically I'm delivering all the songs,
Yeah.
and then I'm going. There's none of that. Hey, clap and wildly, and I'll come back on and do something.
Yeah.
But he did an encore.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Honorary Listener Award. We have joint winners.
Honorary is this a new one? This is honorary
Yes.
listener. It's a new one.
Yep.
It's you get this by contributing something to the podcast in a way.
And both these people have this year either by recommending we review stuff,
Or simply just for being there.
yeah, or being the topic in a way of other podcasts.
Yes. Yeah.
And actually, having just looking around this room, it just remind me. I think they should get a special gift on their way for Christmas as well. I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we got
So,
something here.
Yeah. So
Nice.
Spencer and Neil will be getting a CTTB
Oh,
gift.
excellent.
Moving on, Best Song of the Year award, which is good because we've planned that one really well. The idea was we were going to do top 5 lists for this, but
Well, we
clearly didn't.
abandoned doing that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they clearly didn't bother. So I'm just going to go. The people will get the impression we've not really planned this very well. I'm going to say Lord Greenlight as my song of the year.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I'm gonna go with "Don't Delete the Kisses" by Wolf Alice. And I may come back to this later, but the reason I'm picking that is, for me, that song very much let me into a place I probably hadn't been for about 20 years, and that is being young. Thanks. But also young and in love.
Oh.
You know, that combination. I obviously I'm now older and in love, but being young and in love, and that sort of first flourish of do I like you or don't I like you, and how do I go about for me it was very much teenage kicks for the digital age.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
you
what
know,
I mean.
yeah. So it was like, you know, teenage kicks but with a smartphone. So don't delete the kisses.
Yeah, for me, Greenlight Lord Curse was just a really fine pop record that was one of the came out early on in the year, and one of those songs that has been played to death in our car.
Yeah.
And despite that fact, I still think it's a good song.
Yeah. Nice.
The yearly best reference to Todd
Ping.
award once again goes to me, and it's going to go to me.
What surprise, surprise.
And it's going to go to me for this now. Last week I was listening to Desert Island Discs featuring one Kelsey Grammer, and one of the songs that Mr. Grammer picked was "Mated" by Todd Rundgren. So that's our ping
Is
moment
that it?
for this year
I thought you might have
in the
slipped.
podcast.
You're actually in the podcast, so you can't help that, can you? Or
So-
can you?
This is the one that people really wanted to know.
Wow.
The Classic Gold Cobra Award for Worst Album of the Year.
All right. And the rule for this one is, which in the event of no overall winner, it is presented to Limp Bizkit, of which the album Gold Cobra of theirs from 5-6 years back now. This was dedicated to them in perpetuity. Should there be no one that's released an album that bad this year, and last year, Our Wisdom dedicated this one to Drake.
Yes.
And what we're doing this year?
rolling.
We're actually giving it back to Limp Bizkit because
I have no idea if they even released an album this year, but
No.
if they did, I'm sure it was bad.
So yeah, exactly. So thanks again for that.
Right, this is more interesting. We have a new award.
No, really, it is.
This is the Spirit Award for Most Disappointing Album of the Year.
Oh,
And we have 3 possibles of here. We have Taylor Swift,
hang on. What was that again? The what award?
the Spirit Award.
Gotcha.
The Taylor Swift Reputation,
Yeah.
Depeche Mode Spirit,
Hang on.
or Fleet Foxes Crack Up. Pete, drum roll please. Who is the winner of our Most Disappointing Album of the Year award?
It says here that the winner is Depeche Mode with Spirit. This album has tortured me. I've probably listened to this album more than I've listened to some of our favourite albums, because I just keep coming back to it and thinking it can't be bad. It's Depeche Mode. It's Spirit. And
Well, it's not bad.
No, of course it's not bad. It's not. No, it's not bad at all. And it was, again, spoiler alert. Didn't quite make my top 20 list, but was always hovering.
Yeah.
It was in at number 15 at some point. I'm sure it was. And having had the fortune to see them live this year as well, this album works wonderfully live. This is their best album in years when live. And that just
doesn't
makes
translate to the record.
and
then,
that
does
just
it?
makes it even more frustrating, because I went and saw them live and then I listened to it again. I was just like, oh no, it's still disappointing.
Yeah,
So,
and I have. This is one where I totally agree. This was one of those records that I remember when we came to that podcast, thinking I'm going to come to this podcast and say, Pete, I don't really rate this very highly, and you're going to rave about it, and you kind of went, no, I pretty much feel that way too. It's like, oh, good, it's not just me then. I was thinking, yeah, it's not really grabbing me at all. It's just,
No. One of my favourite artists of all time.
must do better.
Must do better. I don't know if they will though. I mean, who knows what the future may
who
bring.
knows indeed.
So that's the spirit of it.
So now I suppose we get to the
bit that matters.
Yeah, the important bit. If we can find the right page of the notes. Actually, it's listed somewhere. Oh yeah, there it is.
There we go.
Yeah, our basic top 20 rundown of the albums of the year, our combined albums of the year. As a touch point, perhaps run down the top 10 critics' views, which we tend to do every year. This is based on 81 lists
81.
of the great and the good. We've Drowned in Sound, Rolling Stone, Mojo, all these kind of people, and their top 10 as based on those 81 lists was Queens of the Stone Age Villains at number 10,
Yeah, okay.
Thundercat, who we did last podcast,
Yep.
Drunk at number 9,
Oh,
Tyler the Creator, Flower Boy at 8,
yep.
Father John Misty, Pure Comedy at 7,
Uh-huh.
The National Sleep Well Beast at 6,
Yeah.
Sampha Mercury Winning Process, there's a bit of progress there,
Process.
at 5,
Uh-huh.
St Vincent's Mass Education at 4, and their top 3 were
Okay, here we go.
LCD Sound System, American Dream,
What?
Lord Melodrama at 2,
Okay, okay.
and by a country mile, the winner, Kendrick Lamar's Damn at number 1.
Okay. Based on my comments in the previous podcast, I can kind of see where they're coming from with all those choices. Yeah. Quite divergent from what we picked.
Well, it's quite a bit. Well, you say that, but when you get to if you get to our top 10, I mean, are we going to do the whole thing, or should we just
No,
do our
just
top
do the 10.
10? Okay, so
Nobody cares about what we did with Tiny Temper.
true. Okay,
Number
we should say
15.
we should say that
Number 15, Tiny.
Yeah, Kendrick Lamar and Thundercat were joint 20th in our list.
Oh, well done.
So number 10, Pete. What's number 10?
It's Semper Femina with Laura Marling.
Number 9, we have a tie between Father John Misty, Pure Comedy, Courtney Barnett and Kurt Files, Lot of Sea Lights, and Waxahachie's Out of the Storm.
Glad you got to say that.
Yeah.
Number 8, it's another joint tie. Oh, lots of joint ties this year. It was Lord's Melodrama and Angelina Presley's Wrangled.
At 7, we have our first indie, and Wolf Alice's Visions of a Life.
Loved it. That Sampha with Process at 6.
St Vincent's Mass Education, which is kind of in line with what the critics were saying. Is at number 5.
This was my number 5, but our overall number 4 is always Anti-Socialites.
And before I say the three,
something remarkable now happens.
yeah, something did happen. But
Something that's never happened before.
as regular listeners will know, me and Pete quite often. There's usually our top 5 usually has 2 or 3 albums that are the same, and there's a couple of times when our top 3 has had the same albums, but we've never actually rated them in the exact same order.
Yes.
Until this year,
This is a first.
we did. So number 3 is Jason Isbell and the 400 Units, the Nashville Sound, which was a really strong follow-up to the previous album, South. I think was it Southeastern?
Southeast, yeah.
Which we were taken with.
Yep.
Greatly, and this National Sound was actually nominated for Album of the Year in the Country Music Awards.
Wow, and deservedly so, I think. This was a very soulful, not in the musical sense, but a very heartfelt album, and a very moving album. Actually, I was hesitating. You noticed I hesitated earlier over the gig thing. I was actually really quite moved at the gig by this album. And the live performance was stunning, and I really rated this album.
And it rocks, and it does the quiet as well. It ticks the boxes.
I'd say my own list, but certainly these 3, it was paper thin as to which position they were in. It again makes it all the more remarkable we picked the same 3 records in the same order. But at number 2,
just missing out. What was it?
It's Susan Sunfor with Music for People in Trouble. An album that, despite being the complete opposite of the album before, and despite in my love of Sunfor to this point being based purely on all that sonic noise and loud pop brashness that she threw into the previous album, this had none of that, and should have and could have been a massive disappointment, but actually ended up being one of the most surprising albums of the year, and was a real safe place for people in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those albums that we covered this year that you had to listen to. You couldn't just have it on as background music.
Not at all.
Because it doesn't really work in that kind of sense. You have to.
Yeah.
You had to give something to it to get something out of it. And as you say, when you did do that, it turned into an absolute charm from an album that initially you're thinking, I kind of miss her doing that thing she did before, and it's a bit kind of dour and stuff like that. But then you suddenly find yourself just being slowly kind of drawn in, and it's a wonderful record. So our album of the year and comes from near the start of the year. An album that I think even then we said was certainly one that we expected to be there or thereabouts come the end of the year, and that certainly seems to have been the case. And it is the latest album by Ryan Adams, Prisoner. Yeah. Which again, I think I've been a fan, as people know, for years, but I think the last 2 albums particularly have been strong in both almost taking his kind of indie folky country rock essence but channeling it into a more kind of commercial kind of sound without selling out, as they used to say. I don't think it's sold that many records in that sense, and I don't think he's had lots of hits off it or anything like that. But I think it is an album that, as the previous album was, one that's very inviting. It's not an album that's kind of like putting up barriers to try and keep you out. It's a very inclusive, fun rock record. Yeah,
this and the previous album, this album in particular was very. It's just a great rock album, and I listened to it again only today, and just from that opening organ chord, you get for it's about 30 seconds. Then you get the riff kicks in, and it smacks of a great album to come. And it doesn't let up. It goes quiet. It goes loud. It just doesn't let up, and it is just such an enjoyable record. And where perhaps some of the other albums in this list fell down is that there was that variation in quality. This is just superb all the way through. It's top drawer stuff.
It is indeed.
On that point, a couple I just wanted to throw in as randoms. I mentioned earlier What It Meant to Be Young. Visions of Life reintroduced me to indie music this year by Wolf Alice, and as I say, reminded me of why music can sometimes, in most surprising ways, just suddenly grab hold of you.
Yes.
And take you to places perhaps you've never been before, or haven't been for a long time. And that's why what we do is just so wonderful every year. And thank you again for listening. And I wanted to throw Gang Signs of Prayer in there as well, as a kind of
Stormzy. Yes,
yeah,
he just missed out on my top 20. He was hovering there or thereabouts for a while.
I sneaked him into my top 10 because actually I don't think we've had a British rap artist or certainly we've never had an artist from that background, but he brought everything that we've been saying for the last couple of years about grime. It's been interesting.
Yeah.
Particularly from London. He brought all that together. But he did something very personal with it and turned it into not only a great grime album, but also a great soulful sounding record as well. Yeah.
And also, if you haven't seen the video clip of him and Judi Dench, seriously,
yeah, that's worth the money alone.
Yeah.
But for finally, because it feels like all the big rap icons, hip hop icons are on the other side of the pond. I think finally we've got an artist here who's potential to be just as big.
Indeed, I'm more than happy to go along with that. I suppose my only thing that I would drag it out, yeah, is almost the guilty pleasure that we discussed a few weeks ago of Prophets of Rage album.
Oh yeah,
Rage Against the Rage.
Rage Against the Rage.
Yes. Which is just loud and daft but yeah, enjoyable.
Yeah.
And definitely one of the more enjoyable listens of the year, regardless of how good everything else was.
Yes. Yes.
But I think overall our feeling of this year was a bit kind of
yeah, it was a bit near. I think it got better. I think overall we had a stellar year a couple of years ago. Overall better than last year. Yeah, well, last year was shit for all kinds of reasons. But overall better than last year. And I think actually towards the end when we went through, I'm going through the list and I sort of compile it off and on throughout the year. Actually got to the end of the year, thought that's a good 20-25 records I've got there. So yeah, that's my thought.
okay. So we will end.
Our last one of the year.
We will end. That's the good news. We will end. We will end with the respective top 20s that just so you can see where the overall things came from or didn't come from. So I'll kick off. At number 20, I had The National with Sleepwell Beast. 19, Thundercat Drunk, just based on those 2 listens, has to be said.
Well done.
It might possibly have got higher if I had more time. Haim, Something to Tell You, at number 18. Juliana Hatfield's Pussy. I always wanted to say that. At number 17. Wolf Alice, Visions of Life, at 16 for me. Some mental illness from Amy Mann at 15. The aforementioned Prophets of Rage at 14. Courtney Barnett and Kurt Vile, which now we reviewed a couple of podcasts ago, which again I just really took to a lot. It's got a very sweet kind of record. A lot of Sea Lice at 13. Angelina Presley, Wrangled at 12. Ping, Todd Rundgren. White Knight at 11. My top 10, Lord Melodrama at 10. Sanford Progress at or it's Process, isn't it? 9, LCD Sound System, American Dream, whatever his album was
You
called.
could never get your head around that, could you?
Laura Marling, Semper Mina at 7, Waxahachie Out of the Storm at 6, St Vincent at 5, Always at 4, and as you're all aware, our top 3 is the top 3 that we said a minute ago, so Jason Isbell, Citizen 4, and Ryan Adams at number 1.
Yeah. Depeche Mode, Elbow, Arcade Fire, possibly Taylor Swift, sadly Harry Styles, all had to make way for this lot. Kendrick Lamar's Damn at 20, National, Sleepwell Beast, Queens of the Stone Age, Villains at 18, Royal Blood at 17, Phoenix Ti Amo at 16, Tiny Temper, Youth at 15, as I revealed earlier. Courtney Barnett and Courteval, Lot of Sea Lies 14, Marika Hackman, do you remember that? That was a good album.
That was quite miserable as well.
Yeah, it was quite miserable, but enjoyably bleak. I'm Not Your Man at 13, Lord at 12, with Melodrama, Tyler the Creator, Flower Boy, another one of my experimental choices at 11. My top 10, Angelina, Presley Wrangled at 10, St Vincent at 9, Stormzy at 8, Sampha at 7, Father John Misty's Pure Comedy at 6, Always at 5, the wonderfully wonderful Wolf Alice with Visions of Life at 4, thank you for that, and our 3, once again for the last time, Jason Isbell, Susan Sunfor's Music at 2, and Ryan Adams' Prisoner at number 1.
And a Happy New Year.
And a Happy New Year to you too.
See you with CTTB 2018.
Who'd have thought?
Well, our 2 listeners, clearly.
Thanks again, guys.